as we are here inside the Bearcat Breakroom on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University. Hard to believe that a year has gone by already, but we are in year 2 with Binghamton University here on Wake Up Call. And David is typically behind the scenes, and I asked him to be in front of the camera today. He obliged me as we honor him for 25 years of service in the world of communications. And as I can say with David here on the screen with me, there is not everybody that's built like him. And in the world of communications, sometimes there is a lack thereof. David is the opposite. If you have a question, he gets back to you. If it's in the wee hours of the night, he'll make sure that he gets you that information. And he is constantly making sure that you have everything that you need and more information instead of less. So what I would say to who they call DOB, thank you for the work that you have done. Binghamton University Assistant Athletic Director in Communications, Mr. O'Brien, is here with us. David, how are you?
Thank you, Dan. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Dan. I also want to thank you for your partnership and your friendship the year and a half that I've known you.
Yeah, and I thank you, and I appreciate those words. And, for me, David, from the day that I met you and from when I first came out to go to a game for women's basketball, just the level of professionalism that you carry. There's little things that I pay attention to that people may not. The way somebody dresses, right? You dress professionally, you handle yourself in a certain way, the timeliness of the work that you do, making sure that everybody there on the scorer's table has what they need, making sure that going into it, hey, Dan, this is where you're sitting, this is where you're going to be, we have this for you, and just the information. And I want to say thank you for those elements of it. How you dress, how you are with timing, how you are with making sure that things are organized. I don't think that there's enough said about that, but there's definitely people will complain when it's not there, but they won't say thank you when it is there. And I want to thank you and the staff at Binghamton University for the level of professionalism that I've seen from you.
Well, thank you very much. We have a good staff. I got to give a lot of credit to my boss, John Hartrick, who hired me 25 years ago, who's really set an example. And the two of us have really tried to set an example the last quarter century, and also to our newer colleagues, Anna Harris and Nick Landy, who also are part of the team.
Yeah, and when you speak on each of these individuals, I've had the opportunity to work with all of you in speaking with the student athletes and the coaches. And you mentioned John Hartrick, the head of the communications on the athletics side thing for Binghamton University. John has been on the show. I want to put John on the hot seat for a second here with you, David. I want you to tell me something about John that we may not know of working with him for over 2 decades now.
I'd be happy to. John hired me back in 2000, and I had been a grad assistant. I'd been an intern, then a graduate, and then a full-time intern at Maryland. And I came here at a very unique time when we were just transitioning to Division One. The thing about John that I really appreciate him, and that anybody who worked for him, is he really gave me the latitude to grow. I'm always loyal to him, obviously, as my boss. He really gave me the latitude to grow as a professional in my career. I mean, he's not micromanaging me. He's giving me advice. And I just really think I wouldn't have been here 25 years if I didn't have the boss that I did in John.
And when he took that chance on you back in 2000, do you remember what he said? I mean, when you were looking at moving forward in athletics, do you remember anything about that moment?
I do remember that he was here 9 years. He was really the building. He was one of the founding people of our department as far as who had really invested in it. And he reminded me a lot of Bob Kenworthy, my mentor at Gettysburg, who was the SID there for 40 years, as someone that everybody looked up to and everybody appreciated.
That coming here from David O'Brien here this morning. David, I'm going to ask you to speak on yourself now,
Well,
which I know you will defer, but 25 years of being a part of this athletic world. That does not happen by accident, and there's something to be said about starting in something, going after something, trying to make it your own. And then there's looking back on it and looking at 25 years. I know the importance of just working over time. And when you're doing what you love and loving what you do, time flies. I'll celebrate 22 years a broadcaster this year. And if you ask me, I feel like in my heart and in my energy, I'm like right out of college, 21 years old, going after it. So I know that when we talk about 5 years in something, 10 years in something, let alone 20, 25, there's something to be said about time flying. But when you reflect on 25 years in this business, in the world of athletic communications, how do you feel like you went from where you started to get to a point where it's been over 2 decades? What do you feel like has gotten you here?
Really, it was something that I learned from Mr. Kenworthy and also from one of my mentors, Jim Norris, is, when I came here, the writing and, the media guides were the big skill sets. Obviously, that's not true nowadays, but, Mr. Kenworthy was at Binghamton for 40 years, and he says it's not so much the skill set you have, but the person that you are that gets you the finish line. It's about how much you care, about how much you invest. And, one turning point for me in this journey, Dan, has been, I when I came up here to Binghamton, I was single and unattached, and then I met my wife and three step kids, and we became a family. And as I watched them grow and go through the challenges of life, I began to look at my student athletes really in a different way.
Yeah.
These people are going through the same pressures that my stepkids are, and it really made me very empathetic. And so I think the way I changed was, how I viewed athletes from, hey, I used to do a sport too, I'm kind of like you, to, you're the same generation as my stepkids, and I watched them go through all the social media and pressures that I didn't have. And I think that really helped me evolve and really seeing my student athletes differently.
And when you speak on time and having that experience and evolution and whatnot, what can you say? And I'm being careful with with the word evolution, because I feel like some things have devolved, and I think you would agree with me in that sense. And kind of the wild west chaotic collegiate athletics that we have now. But I also feel like Binghamton is in this sphere where, as the world is getting a little crazy, Binghamton still cares about the student and student athlete. They still care about being an education beacon of hope for the student athlete. So I'd love to get your thoughts on, as the 25 years have gone by, where have you seen the most change in your job and kind of how you have to attack it? I know you mentioned the media guides and the art of that, and obviously that's different now. There's a lot of things that are digital, but what else have you seen over these 25 years that has caused you to have to be able to evolve and find your way through it in a unique way? I mean, obviously 25 years doesn't happen without the ability to essentially grow with your times and be able to ad lib.
That's a great question, Dan. Nowadays, there's a big emphasis, obviously, on graphic design, on social media, and photography. And what I really learned, especially in the last several years, is no, I don't have those skill sets, but I can recruit people and coordinate and manage people who have those. And, a big example is our softball team this year. Obviously, that was a great team. We had a great year. And
Yeah.
while I wasn't someone who took the best pictures or did the best, designs or videos, there were so many good people here that I really had an opportunity to manage and coordinate. And I think just going from someone who does the nitty gritty work to someone who may not do it but knows how to oversee and coordinate people who do, that's something that I've had to do. I mean, I've actually got a call up at a day or two ago from someone on one of my teams who said, what can we do social media? Anything can help. And I kind of looked at it and see, okay, what kind of skill set do they have? So I've really, I was a people person when I got here, but I've really had to become one more so to kind of bridge the gap. And even if I can't deliver the goods myself, I can work with people who can.
And you bring up a great point there, David, in the sense of the art of leadership, where if you don't know how to do something, if it's not your specific skill set, if you feel like there's somebody out there that can do it well, that you're willing to put together a team, surround yourself with people that may be smarter than you, that may know this avenue, that may know that, but that you can work with them. And like you said, there's things that you're doing, and then there's things that you feel like other people do very well, and not having to essentially do that specific thing, but to oversee and have the right people in place. What can you say to that effect of the 25 years of athletic communications and learning the art of leadership and putting a team together and not being in this world where it's me, and I got to do it and I'm not willing to hear anybody else's opinion, but to be open to somebody saying, hey, David, I believe I can do this. I think that this would be better software. I think this is a better angle, to put a team together and oversee a team and be willing to work and play nice with others. I think that's a great art of leadership piece that not everybody talks about in today's world.
Thanks. I agree. One of the leaders that I looked up to, I'm not a Yankees fan, but Joe Torre was someone who people say not be one of the biggest X's and O's people, but he knows how to manage and relate to people. And I really used him as a role model of that. While I may not have the cutting edge skills, I know to turn to, but the thing that I really want to do is when I work with people, I want them to be, good people. And I think this goes a lot like any of our coaches. And I think John can certainly speak the same way in the people that he interviews and hires.
You touched on something that is incredibly important to me. You said you want the people to be good people. In the world that we live in today, there doesn't seem an emphasis in America on that, right? There seems to be such a focus on, especially in the collegiate world, money, access, free agency, essentially with the transfer portal. You said you don't want to just have somebody be there that's talented. You want to have a good person. And I feel that in over a year of working with Binghamton University, I've been able to really see that on display. The good people that are student athletes, the good people that are coaches, the good people that are in the athletic communications department at Binghamton. And obviously, Gene Marshall, who was the first person that I got to speak with and sit down with about my plan and my vision for Binghamton University, and seeing how we parallel in our morals and values and ethics and what we stand for. So I'd love to go a little bit deeper into that in Binghamton University specifically, that Binghamton is not comprised of simple talent, but comprised of people that are good and are doing good things in the community.
Yeah, I think one thing with the student athletes that I've seen is, whenever you come to college, you want to look for people you can trust. And I've learned to, especially as I've started to see these kids like my own stepkids, is I try to get to know each person. I meet with every student athlete individual when they get here, and I want to know about things that don't apply to athletics or academics. There is a lot of pressure, and when I talk to them about their family, I talk to them like we had we had a soccer player from France, Mayo Lopez. He graduated last year, and he was telling me how he worked at the French Open as a volunteer ball boy. And I love, professional tennis and watching that. And we got going on that for so long, and it just kind of bridged a gap. I know when I have athletes interning for me, the first thing I tell them is, okay, you can take off the Superman cape. You're not a student or an athlete here, you're a person. And they just kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And the talks that I have with them about life in general are some of the most rewarding moments that I have.
And when you look at those rewarding moments, this 25-year honor, David O'Brien here with us this morning in this edition of the Bearcat Breakroom and our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. We're speaking with David here, Binghamton University Assistant Athletic Director in the world of communications, to look at this 25-year honor. And it was down in Orlando, Florida. What I find to be really interesting, David, is that when it comes to the world of athletics, now I was down in Florida. It's the second hub of my company, Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. I was there for 2 weeks, and we broadcasted Wake Up Call. We did our entertainment show, Super Powered Pop, and covered Epic Universe at Universal. And we also did our Disney show, speaking about different pieces of the world of Disney, giving people advice when it comes to rides and restaurants and whatnot, hotels, with the show Do Diz with Dan. So I'm down there for 2 weeks doing my company thing, being with my mom, being with my family. I leave, and as I'm leaving, here comes Scotty Rogers of the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic that I've known for a while. Here comes Gene Marshall, who's being honored in the athletic director's world, and here comes David O'Brien. it seems like Orlando, Florida has been taking a lot of us that know each other and a lot from the upstate New York area. What can you say to kind of the mystery of life, but also the serendipity and the way that life kind of works, that as I'm leaving my second home and had a great time down there, here I am seeing you and Gene from Binghamton be honored down in Orlando, Florida as well.
Well, Dan, first of all, I wish I'd known about your podcast about rides. Laura and I went, my wife was down with me. We went to Epcot Center, so we could have used some advice there. So
Did you go on
that
Guardians or no?
we didn't go on Guardians, but we went on Ratatouille, and we haven't seen the movie, so Laura and I are going to watch that at some point. The Frozen ride wasn't working, and that was a big movie with my grandkids, so that was the only bummer thing. But it was really good to do that. Just speaking to what you said,
Yeah.
one thing that was really kind of inspiring was the depth of knowledge within my field. That you have to explain to a lot of people in life what a sports information person is. What do they do, like besides keeping stats? And just to be around all those people and kind of recharge your batteries was great because, this has been a terrific spring at Binghamton. And, I've been fortunate to work with two teams that won titles, swimming and softball, and have an All American hurler. But by the time I got down to Orlando, I was pretty beat. And it was a wonderful time to recharge around people who knew what I did, and certainly with Laura too. And Orlando does seem to be the hub for that. You're right. I admit I'm not used to being in hotels like the Wide World Marriott. It was definitely eye opener, but
Yeah.
it really is a hub. I was telling Laura that the NFL always has their meetings down in Orlando every March, and it was really a city that you can see why people come there.
Yeah, I mean Orlando is, for all intents and purposes, when I talk about Florida being a second home for myself personally and my company, Orlando is a massive part of that, and so are Tampa, St. Augustine, Tallahassee. We've been all over Florida from the Tallahassee Panhandle, Jacksonville area down to Miami, and so we've hit, I would say, about three quarters of Florida at this point. But to your point about going to Epcot, I saw your pictures last night. I wish I knew as well, because I would tell you that. So I don't know if you know this, but if you allow me to tell you kind of a few pieces here in a little story, David, I worked at Disney,
Oh,
and
no
my
way.
first job at Disney was working at Epcot.
No
And
way.
my grandmothers, when they were alive, back in 2008, was the last time that we brought them down to Florida. And I had the opportunity and the blessing to walk with them. And when you're leaving the Epcot ball, so you're heading out on the right side, we were
Right.
walking down there. I brought both of my grandmothers there with my family. I stopped and they said, "What are you doing, Daniel?" I said, "Just give me a second." And I said, "Gammy, G Mama, look up." And they looked up at the big Epcot ball, and I said, "Welcome to my office." And that, to me, being a Disney kid growing up, was something that was larger than life, and God blessed me with, that I never thought I'd be able to say. I will tell you that, being a card carrying Italian and Hispanic, I will tell you that the pizza, the artisan pizza that they do at Epcot, right across from, in the eatery that has the Starbucks in it, that's right across from Guardians of the Galaxy, really good pizza to get. I would tell you Guardians of the Galaxy is the best ride you're going to go on in all of Walt Disney World. I would tell you that Frozen is broken down more often than it's running. So when it is open, I tell people all the time, if it's a 3 hour wait and your kids love Frozen, or your grandkids or your friends or your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, your stepkids, if they love to go to Frozen, then go when it's open, because that ride breaks down all the time. I don't know why. I would also say to you that it's nice to go on Soarin', and usually the wait's a little bit better now, because living with the land and that whole kind of experience in the land is not as busy with Guardians being there. I would tell you that the food court that's across from the ride, Soarin', has really good sandwiches. And I would also make mention to you that it is imperative for you to make sure you enjoy the World Showcase, because they have different festivals going on. They just finished up with the Flower and Garden. They're going to be having the Food and Wine Festival. They have a Festival of the Holidays, and they also have an arts festival. that goes on. So pretty much almost every single month of the year, there's some festival going on at Epcot, which brings in unique food, unique drinks, and in a lot of times unique countries and unique cultures. So the next time you go to Epcot, I will make sure that you have a plan in place. But I'm happy to tell you now that Guardians is a must. And don't be sad about Frozen, because I think 92% of the world has gone there when the ride has been broken down.
Well, I can tell you, I do have other family going down to Epcot, so this is all duly noted, Dan.
So I will, as that trip around the world that you can get at Epcot, I would love to know in 25 years of the trips that you've taken and the experiences that you've had, what it's been like for you to be on the road, because I know you're on the road with these teams. You're just on the road recently. So if you have any memory or two that you would like to share of the journey that you take with these athletic programs that you cover at Binghamton University.
I do, Dan. There's quite a few. One memory that sticks out to me is in 2017, our women's basketball team went to the Great Alaska Shootout the last year that we had it before it was discontinued. And there was so much history there. You know, Patrick Ewing played there, Ralph Sampson played there, and to see the history was good. And also, I do like to go places, and Alaska was definitely someplace I never thought I would get to. The time difference was such that when we landed at 4 o'clock, I called my wife, who has a daycare out of her house, at 8 o'clock when her day was still going. So that was unique. And also going into Las Vegas was pretty neat for me. That we stayed there on the trip because I grew up in Maryland when Sugar Ray Leonard was the biggest thing, and he fought at Caesar's Palace all the time. And so
Yeah.
to see that, to be part of that history was good. I also think that the first time that, our men's basketball team went to March Madness in 2009, that was a treat. I had been to Greensboro several times when I was at Maryland, but to go down there and really to be in that kind of environment was pretty neat. And, my boss and I got to meet Jim Nance and Clark Kellogg, who were doing the game. And I got to chat with Jim Nance, and my late stepdad, who was a big role model for me, was a big golf fan. And so I brought up his name to Jim, and just to make that connection was pretty neat. There's many trips. I think the trip the softball team had to Oregon was pretty neat as well. And the first time I ever went out to Oregon was with the track and field team to Hayward Field, and I ran actually track and cross country Gettysburg College class of '92. And you know, Hayward Field is like the field of dreams of track, and just to be there with all that history was phenomenal. And my track and field high school coach, who I still keep in contact with, he's like, David, why don't you go out and run some striders on there? And there was too much security, but I really have gone to places that, I haven't gone, I would never have gone to otherwise. And I really didn't fly much. I didn't even fly out of the Eastern time zone until I was age 27. And so to make all these trips, there are a lot of trips which are more grind, trips from here to there, but there are definitely some places that I never would have gone to otherwise.
I have to bring up one because I've heard it from the coaching staff. When you travel at the end of the regular season and then the postseason may be there, and that feeling of, and I think there was a time recently where you just stayed. I think it was like an 8 or 9 day period, but in the world of Maine, when it's snowing and in women's basketball, and when you have to go out to Maine and be in that area, bring me to that side of things, because I know that there's been that world of travel on a bus. The weather's not great. Do we just stay here in Maine? So I've never heard it from your voice, but I have heard it from Binghamton. I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, I think those type of things happen to everybody who travels. And, Maine is a long trip, but I want to just really give a shout out to them because the way they promote their women's basketball program over the years, and they were an Elite 18 back in the 90s, has been terrific. So while there's definitely the downside of going up to Maine being a 10-hour trip, the way they treat you up there, the fans they have, the department they have, that really makes the trip worth it. And they really, it's a first class area up there. So Well, yes, there's been some times where I haven't stayed up at Maine for 8 or 9 days myself.
Yeah.
We've stayed partially there, but one thing about those trips that I appreciate is you see how close the team is. If you were with people you didn't like, you would definitely see a lot of friction on the bus ride back. But every team I've been with, the times that they get stuck in there, you really see the chemistry. You really see how much they get along. And that's kind of the inspiring thing that I see when those moments happen.
And when you are with a team, and let's say weather hits or something happens, bus breaks down, whatever that may be over 25 years, what has been one of the moments for you? Like if they're playing a game, if they're singing on the bus, if they're playing, if there's a game going on with the team, if you're in the hotel, what has been a moment where we've seen David O'Brien get involved? Has there been a team that has kind of put you in the mix, said, "All right, David, we're dancing, you got to dance," or "We're playing this game, you got to play with us"? Has there been one of those moments?
Yes, the softball team has definitely been the moment for me.
Okay.
And they used to have a game called the headphone game where everybody had to sing a song. And this was 2011, and I was put on the spot. I didn't have a headphone, and I belted out Unforgettable with no headphones on. And I heard about it for a while. And so the next several times I came on the trips, they had me sing out a song or two. And the current softball coach, Jess Bump, who when she was a student, she gave one of the senior speeches at the banquet of one of her favorite memories, and she singled out all some of the songs that I sang, which not many people knew about. So that was interesting. And then a couple years later, the basketball team, under our former head coach Linda Semino, we were coming back from Vermont, and they started doing songs and all that. I'm thinking, I'm not getting involved, I'm not singing. And they went around the way. And so finally when they call me to sing, and the head coach is like, David, get up there. And when the head coach tells you to do something, you do it. So I sang Every Breath You Take, one of the few songs I remember from the 80s. And they made me do two encores. My voice was definitely a wreck. And I didn't tell my family about this because I just thought I don't want to make a big deal. Well, the next night was the coach's radio show. And I took my wife and my stepson, who was still back in high school at that point, to it. And Linda's up there and she gives her talk, and she mentioned about the sing along. And then she mentioned about me in front of my wife and stepkids and everybody else. And I'm thinking, David, you idiot. And so, my wife, I definitely heard about it. She accepted it. And then a couple, so those are probably the two moments that stand out to me the most as far as me getting involved.
If you had to sing karaoke today, and Gene Marshall said that it is your job to go up to the microphone to represent Binghamton University, what would be your song of choice?
Every Breath You Take by the Police. I love that group. It's one of the few songs that doesn't require me to do the high notes, so that would be my song of choice. I'm not going to do it on this podcast, Dan.
No, it's fair. I wouldn't ask you to do that. If you had to assign a song to John Hartrick that you guys were going to sing together, what song would you bring him up for?
Well, every time that one of our seasons ends, I always play a YouTube clip of Don Meredith singing "Turn Out the Lights, the Party's Over" on Monday Night Football. So probably that one.
Okay, fair enough. I like it. I like the musical side of things this morning with David O'Brien. Now, David, you spoke on Alaska. I have never been. I have been told to go. It is one of those places that you need to see in your lifetime. I do have some family friends that moved out there from Syracuse, New York years ago. What can you say to the world of Alaska and the experience that you had in the Great Alaskan Shootout?
The people there are so friendly. You don't hear much about, what people are like up there. You always hear it's cold, there's nothing up there, but really the city of Anchorage was terrific. What really fascinated me, we had a very good bus driver who really told us a lot of history there. Is there are more airports than there are roads up there. Airports are like bus stops up there. So that was something that really got me. They do have very good food up there. They have Alaskan crab, but Dan, I'm from Maryland, so Maryland crab is always going to be my specialty. They did have very good chili up there,
Okay.
and just really the atmosphere was terrific. It didn't get, I was up there in November, so the sun didn't come out until about 9:30 in the morning, and it set at 4:30. So that was a little unusual, but you just really don't know how many quality people are up at a place like that until you go.
Yeah, and to stay on the west side of things, Eugene, Oregon, which you mentioned for softball, has in recent history become a home away from home for Binghamton University because we know that Olympic qualifiers happen out there. So we know that there's been multiple student athletes that have been out that way. And Emily, her representation for the world of track for Binghamton, for upstate New York, I know that you covered that extremely close, and you and the staff at Binghamton allowed us to speak with her on her journey, which was absolutely incredible. So I'd love to go a little bit deeper into that. You talked about student athletes becoming stepkids to you. Emily has got to be one of the sweetest, kindest, hardworking, humble, and yet extremely talented people that I have met in connection with Binghamton. And then here comes Eugene again with the softball team going out there. So now when I see Eugene, Oregon, I don't think any, the first thing I think when I see Eugene, Oregon is Binghamton University. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that connection and obviously Emily's road to the Olympics.
What was interesting about Emily is I knew her for the 2 or 3 years before she really blossomed into the runner she was. And when her first real experience on the national stage, Dan, came when she was 14th at the 2021 cross country championships, which was run during the pandemic. And the amount of attention that she got didn't just overwhelm her, it overwhelmed me. And I kind of felt like Emily and I grew together as far as what to expect in terms of media coverage. She wasn't used to it. She's not one of those people who really seeks to be in the spotlight 24/7. And certainly, I had not had that big of a story in years. We had a national champion pole vaulter, Rory Quiller, back in 2008, but this was before all the media turned into what it is today. So Emily and I kind of grew together in terms of what to expect, as far as what she was comfortable with, as far as what I knew. We kind of really learned on the job together, and that's what I really remember about her, and I still do to this day. And so when we did the interviews last year, it was much better. Like we had a huge Zoom call with everybody. We had individual interviews, and I got to know Emily so well that that was a piece of cake compared. So I really grew with her.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, to have these moments, like you said, to know these student athletes, like you said, you meet with them individually, you talk with them beyond sports, beyond scholastic side of things. You want to get to know them as people, and that's exactly what we do here on the show, especially in rapid fire, which you and I will play in just a little bit.
Oh boy.
Of all these relationships and the building of them, David, when you get to see them before the world sees them, when you get to see them before they're this in the America East or this in the NEC or this nationally or this in the NCAA, for you to be a part of their journey before that one thing breaks or that story comes out, what has that been like for you to see the person behind the story essentially before the story?
It's been terrific. And, I've had some people who really had a hard road to get here. I've had a couple of transfers come in different sports who they came here, they were beaten up, they were injured, they had to rehabilitate their psyche, and then they turn into all conference performers. And to get to them when they're in that, vulnerable state and to see them blossom, I mean, those are some of the best stories that I've had. We had a lot of people on our track team, including Marcus Johnson, who he was a walk on when he got here. I mean, he wasn't highly recruited, and now he's an All American. And I know Jesse Fuca, who's done a great job as his coach, has spoken to the journey and him being a part of that. And I feel like I've been too, and it's been very rewarding to see Dan.
And when we look at that story and the journey of the student athletes and the pieces of what you've seen, we see your journey as well. And we see this honor coming back to it here, full circle to the 25 years of what you've done in sports communications and athletic communications. We had mentioned Senior Associate AD John Hartrick at Binghamton University. He had made this statement in quote, David has been the unsung workhorse in our office for 25 years, and he is so worthy of this recognition and more. He epitomizes the essence of an SID, Sports Information Director, with an unrelenting and humble approach to his job. David bleeds Binghamton green, and his passion for promoting our student athletes, coaches, and staff is second to none. We are fortunate he chose to stay at Binghamton and continues to shine, all while putting others in the spotlight. End quote. Your response to those words?
Uh, Speechless, not just from what he said, but as far as who it came from. You know, John definitely epitomizes all those things just as much. And I think really for me, I've been very blessed with the role models I've had in this industry. And I know in the article that was attached, I really had a moment to say Bob Kenworthy was my inspiration for getting into this business. Herb Hartnett was a great leader at Maryland, as was Chuck Walsh and Dave Haglund. And all these people have been in the business for as long as John and I have. And then I've obviously had John as a boss. So really, I just had phenomenal role models. And I also want to single out my family, the role models I've had. You know, my mom is one of the most incredible workers, and how she, raised my sister and I, and went to law school and got her degree and taught. And my stepdad, who passed away about a year ago, was he was a professor at Maryland. He really taught me the importance of being thorough when I write. He always asked questions about my career. So
Yeah.
I'm really a product of all these people. And, John is certainly one of them.
And for you, 25 years of being in athletic communications, seeing all the changes, seeing everything that's happened in this kind of freeway of 2020 to now with NIL and the transfer portal and all of that, what has kept you in athletic communications for so long?
Oh, that's a great question. It is something that is very time consuming, and it takes a drain. And there have been times I've prayed, if there was something better for my family, just, to have it shown. But there's been so much that has kept me going. I like to think this is where my gifts are. And I think really it's been all about the people, and the people I'm around, because, times change, but, people don't. And that's really what's kept me going, even when there's been times where the hours seem way too long and you kind of wonder where you're meant to be. It still comes back to the people here.
You just said something that's been a theme of everything that I do. And it's been a conversation I've had a lot, especially in these last few years, relationship versus transactional. And you said times will change, but people don't. I'd love to go a little bit deeper into that, of the world of transactional, using people for what you can in a time you can. And once you think you've used it all, you've taken the money out of the ATM, you move on to another ATM, versus building a relationship that can last a lifetime.
Oh boy, that's a great question, Dan. Um, our business and our industry really is built on relationships. And that's something that I saw down in Florida. I saw people that I hadn't seen in years. In fact, the person who was emceeing the lunch that I was honored at, Amy Okola, she worked in the ACC when I worked at Maryland. Last time I saw her, she was actually the press conference moderator at the 2009 basketball championships that Binghamton was a part of. And just to come and give her a hug and act like, nothing's changed, and just have seen her develop, it's been terrific. But I know for me, the thing that I learned about Mr. Kenworthy is it took me a long road from 1992 when I graduated from Gettysburg until 2000 when I got this job at Binghamton. I mean, I worked full time at retail as I was putting myself through grad school for 5 years. Then I interned at Maryland for two, and Mr. Kenworthy stuck with me all those years, like 7, 8 years after I graduated. And it really inspired me. And he passed away this past January. So I
Sorry.
still feel inspired that, you know, I keep pictures of all the interns that I've worked with on my wall. And I still drop them a note, like how they're doing.
Yeah.
Every July 31st is like National Intern Day. And I send a group text to all of them to saying how they're doing, how proud I am of them. And really, I think it just goes back to Mr. Kenworthy. Even after I graduated, he still kept in touch with me, and I can't say enough about him and the impact he had on me.
Well, and how small the world is. You speak on relationships and mention Mr. Kenworthy and God bless him in heaven and to his loved ones here on earth. It's God being God, but of all people that you could say was moderating the event that you just went down to, Amy Yacola is someone that I've known for over 12 years. She is a good friend, and she believed in me way back when I was starting my business. So, of all people that you could name today, I am not surprised that as we talk about relationships, her name is the one that comes up, which is very funny. Before we get into rapid fire, David, I have to ask you this. 25 years in the business, I asked you why stay in it. I want to know why Binghamton. You heard John say you bleed Binghamton green. You have spent so much time in this profession, but you spent that time at Binghamton University. Why?
Ooh, that's a great question. There's several reasons that I stay here besides John, and I think a lot of it was my family. And forgive me if I'm a little misty-eyed about this, Dan. I met Laura through my church in 2002
Yeah.
and in 2001. And, you know, we were friends. And as I got to know her, I got to really see and I got to know her stepkids and our relationship blossomed. It really made me realize how I was raised by a wonderful stepdad. And sorry,
It's
um,
okay.
I really, I grew to love Laura. I grew to love Natalie, Justin, Brandon. And even if it meant I never had a head job, I knew the most important thing was to stay in Binghamton for them. And fortunately for me, John has made it an easy decision to stick around. I couldn't have asked for a better boss. Binghamton does take care of people here. They really care about event management, which I'm a big believer at. But I really think it was a combination of, you know, Binghamton and also doing what was best for my family.
Well, like you said, speaking on your stepdad, I find it poetic in the world that God creates around us that you came from a stepdad that, like you said, always asked, always wanted to know about your career, supports you, and then you become a stepfather and you have the opportunity to do that yourself. Have you reflected on that? Have you kind of looked up at God and said, here you are working in my life and you give me a stepdad that cares so much and brought positivity and goodness to me, cared for me, loves me. And then here I am wondering what my story is going to be. And I get into this profession as a single man. I come to Binghamton as a single person. And here I am getting to live in the world of being a stepdad. And now I get to maybe even understand even more the stepdad I had. Do you look at kind of that poetry that God put in your life?
Absolutely, Dan. You know, for years I wondered why it took me so long to become an SID. You know, I didn't work in an SID office when I was at Gettysburg, so I didn't have a leg up like many people do getting into the business. I had to go to Maryland, work my way through, and there were so many times when I was age 25, 26, 27, where I did pray. And I know this isn't a religious show, but I just have to say that I really asked God, why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long? And then when I started applying to jobs, I was the runner up at Lehigh. I was a runner up at many places before then. And I'll be honest, when I first saw Binghamton, I just applied to it. I didn't know much about it. And even when I went up for my interview, I just kind of went up thinking, all right, what should I think about this place? And fortunately, I had some friends at Stony Brook who really filled me on the inner workings of Binghamton. And I took the job. I was very happy, and I was just very happy to make it. I kind of wonder why it took me a long time, and now I realize I never would have met Laura. And meeting her and my family made it so much worth the wait. And as we were flying down to Orlando, I could just really say, and as I prayed, I just said, okay, Lord, I know why I waited. I know why it took me a long time. And it was to bring everything together like you have. Sorry.
No, it's beautiful. And you know what? This is a religious show. And I talk about God more than I talk about pretty much anything. So don't ever apologize for that. David O'Brien here with us. David, it is now time for you to put me on the hot seat. We will go back and forth. You'll ask the first question, and then I will go. We can ask any topic, any question, and there is no prior notes or anything. I have no idea what David's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. You get the first question. What do you have for me?
Okay, Dan, you've been in many press rooms, mine included. What has been your favorite press room food that you've had at a game?
Favorite press room food? What a question. I
You
I
doesn't
will
have to say where it is. You just have to say what you had.
sure. I mean, there's one NFL team that I love dearly, and their food was awful. But I will not. I will not. It was lukewarm hot dogs and some type of bread raisin pudding, and it was terrifying. But I would say, but I mean, listen, it's free, so I would say my favorite press food. Well, I mean, you guys get Nurchies, and Lord knows that Nurchies is some good pizza. But I would have to say my favorite has to be, and I'm going to shout them out, the New England Patriots in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium. We had a buffet set up, and prior to the game, not kidding, lobster rolls, and
Oh,
just a sea of lobster rolls. You can take as many as you want. And I'm like, I'm going to take one. And then I thought about taking two. And the lady looked at me. She's like, do you want to take some for home as well? I was like, I want to live here. So I would obviously clearly have to say lobster rolls. Also, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, walking in there for the first time and having people tell me in the media, oh my gosh, you have to try the Bananas Foster. It's delicious. And it was like a restaurant. I mean, having them tell you, oh, make sure at halftime you get the Bananas Foster. And I was like, what is this, some five-star Michelin place? And they feed you. They had a meal pregame, then they have like sandwiches, then they had like a hot meal, then there's another meal, then there's Bananas Foster. So I would have to say probably the Patriots and the Bucks, but don't think that I don't notice the fact that y'all give some love to Nurchies at Binghamton University.
right.
My question back to you, David. If we created, okay, let's go with food on this one too. If we created a David O'Brien dish that we could put on the menu at a restaurant, what would be on the plate and why?
Have to be a Maryland crab cake.
Okay.
Lump crab, yes.
All right. Why? Just because of home?
Yes. I will not eat seafood up here unless it's from Maryland. If it's crab, gotta have a crab cake on there.
Okay. All right. Got to have a crab cake. I can appreciate that. What's your next question for me?
Next question is to me is what is the most exciting sporting event you have ever attended in person?
Good question. Well, I've been to the NCAA men's basketball championship game. I've been to multiple Final Fours, but I'd probably have to say, and I was also in that trip to Foxborough was my Jaguars playing the Patriots for an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. I would have to say though, it would probably be this past January 2025 when I covered the college football playoff from beginning to end. I was on site for every round. So I was at Penn State for SMU Penn State in the first round of this historic year of expanding to 12. And then I went to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl for Texas Arizona State, and then I went to the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic for Texas Ohio State, and then I was back in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the national championship between Ohio State and Notre Dame. That national championship game, the entire experience, I have not been to the Super Bowl, but anything that I've seen when it comes to the Super Bowl, I was like, this is the Super Bowl of collegiate athletics. I mean, the carpet, when you walk in, the experience of interviewing student athletes and having like fans just be able to walk and sit on bleachers and watch you do it, to being at the game itself, to meeting Captain America, Anthony Mackie, on the sideline and getting to talk with him and take a picture with him and get to tell him how much I appreciate the work that he's done. I would have to say that, listen, I know the people at Peach Bowl Inc. I know Gary Stoken, and have a lot of respect for Matt Garvey and Gary Stoken and the entire team out there. And Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I've had the blessing of being there, I think, from the beginning of when it was first opened. So, I mean, Atlanta's great. The game was great. The experience was great. And it was great to see a friend of mine, Riley Leonard, and I cross paths in his recruiting years ago when he was choosing between Duke and Syracuse, a kid coming from Alabama. And it was the first time we got to meet in person. And I was there with the media interviewing him. And they said, next question is going to come over here. And Amy Yokola was actually at that as well. And I'm speaking, and I started talking, and I said, hey, Riley, you know, it's been a minute. We've talked on your journey. And he's like, yeah, it has, man. And he smiled and he goes, what's up? And I said, we've talked to each other through it. And he's like, yes, sir. And it was just this like kid moment between him and I got to give him a hug afterward. And so, and him and I have a strong faith. He talks about God openly, which I respect the most out of the work that he does. So I would say it was so many things with the college football playoff, but it would have to be that. I mean, I could have just fallen on the ground at any point and done just kind of like a carpet angel, you know, like you would do when you're just laying in the snow. I think sitting in that moment, David, and being a kid from upstate New York who decided to leave traditional radio and TV and start my own business, get on the internet when it was unheard of, get on podcasting when people didn't know what it was, when they thought it was going to fail, you know, to start way back when, and to bank on myself without a comma in my bank account at a time when I was taking care of my grandmother so she didn't have to live in a nursing home. If I told you how I started my career and every chance I took believing in God and myself, and then to be sitting there at the college football playoff with only 200 to 300 people in the world that were allowed to be there as media credentialed people. I mean, I believed in it. God believed in me, but there were a lot of people that probably thought I was nuts. So to be in that moment, I know it's a long-winded answer, but to be in moments like that and to do those things and to realize that believing in yourself can create a world that almost nobody gets to live in, I would say that those moments I will take with me forever. But if you know anything about me, I'm just getting started, is what I would say.
Okay.
My question back to you, David,
Oh
if
boy.
you and I were in a movie, because I don't know if you know this about me, but I dabble in the world of screenwriting and I'm actually working on a new project. So if you and I were to make a movie and it's a comedy, what is our profession? So you get to pick what you and I do for a job. You get to pick the city we're in, and you have Laura. I am a single man, so you get to pick my love interest. So you're going to give us the movie, the setting of where we are, the job that we have in this comedy, and who are you going to give me as my actress love interest?
Oh boy. Well, I think there's a lot of comedy in both of our professions and a lot of comical stories. So
True.
I would probably say that we can definitely stick in our professions.
Okay.
I would say probably as far as a city, well, I think there's a lot happens in Orlando, so it can probably be down there.
Okay.
Um, I don't know about love interest. I don't really follow too much as far as, current celebrities out there.
Okay.
Um, but if you're looking for comedy, the funniest two actresses I know who would fit into comedy, Lucille Ball and Mary Tyler Moore.
Okay.
My wife and I love both of those shows. We watch them, so let's keep the comic effect. And what was the last question? What was the last part of that?
You got it all. It was the setting of where we're going to be. It was the jobs we're
Okay.
going to have, and it was a love interest. So sportscaster meets SID in Orlando. I like it.
Okay.
It's fitting. So David, because you've been so gracious, I'm going to give you a bonus. I will not ask you another question, but you get to have
Oh,
the
you
last.
can. I'm fine. I'm fine. You can ask whatever you want, Dan.
Okay. Well, I guess then we'll have one more apiece. So you go ahead with your last rapid fire for me.
I thought you were going to ask it to me.
Oh yeah. So I was going to say I was going to defer to you since you've been so gracious with answering my questions. I wasn't going to ask you another one, but you can ask me one and I will ask you one.
Okay. All right. Let's go with what's one place that you haven't been to that you want to go to someday?
The answer a few months ago would have been Italy and Spain, but my dad and I kept our promise and went to Italy after 11 years in the making. So I will say Spain. I have family there and they have watched the show. They've listened to the show, which I think is insane and one of the greatest honors of my life. And I would like to go see my family in Spain. Very simple answer, but one of the truest ones that I can give you. So I would
Okay.
say go to see them. My question back to you, David, and the final question that I have of everything that we've talked about today in the work world, and we've also spoken about family, what has been the greatest gift that you've had in your life being a stepdad to Natalie, Justin, and Brandon? What has been the greatest piece of being their stepfather?
Watching them grow and develop into the people they are today. They all have been very good family people with their own families and also very well in the professional field. Now he's a fourth grade teacher here at Owego. Justin is a senior manager in retail up in Buffalo, and Brandon is works for Lockheed Martin. He's actually working remotely in my own neck, the DMV neck of the woods this week. But
Okay.
to watch all of them grow, to watch them develop over the years, and just to see how staying in one place was the best decision that Laura and I could have made, and just to really to see them grow, kind of like with my student athletes, but on a much deeper level.
Well, and I know that you mentioned mom and your stepdad. What are their names?
Valerie and Herm, or as I call them, Mom and Herm.
So to Miss Valerie and to Herm up in heaven, and of course to Natalie, to Justin, to Brandon, and to Laura, I want to thank you, David, for sharing your story with us today. You have been the man that tells the stories. Today we got to tell yours, and I appreciate the opportunity of doing that. And I appreciate, and I'm not surprised, the heartfelt kindness and goodness and just what you've given us here today to remind us of relationships, the things that matter, having a faith in God, and the importance of family. I'm not surprised, but I'm very grateful that you gave us so much time to tell your story today. And even more so now than I was before we had this conversation. I'm happy to know you and I'm happy to work alongside you, David. So thank you for that.
Right back at you, Dan.
We'll talk with you soon, okay?
Thanks for having me, Dan. You
Of
take
course.
care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
God bless. We'll talk soon. That comment. I want to thank you for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT for audio and video, and our internet streaming radio that comes to you on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. And of course, once we go live, we jump into the archives, and you can find us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And many thanks to the wonderful Brooklyn Pickle in Southern Pines, North Carolina. From New York to North Carolina, you'll find them on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina, right down the road from Pinehurst Golf Course that the PGA Tour knows all too well. That New York flavor, a sandwich, all of those great sandwiches, all the ingredients, all of the wonderful things we've been spoiled with in the great state of New York are down in North Carolina as the Brooklyn Pickle ventures down the coast to Southern Pines on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Let them know that DT sent you. And of course, many thanks to our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York, Great Lakes Honda City, where you can go Monday through Saturday for sales and service and get yourself new and used vehicles. If you want to tour what they have on the lot, go to greatlakeshondacity.com. You also get the phone numbers there for their sales and service at greatlakeshondacity.com. And I want to thank Great Lakes Honda City for over a decade of me bringing home vehicles that I have enjoyed. So many thanks to Great Lakes Honda City, our exclusive studio partner. Carvel DeWitt, the exclusive home of the DT Dolphin. It's our ode to the Lemoyne College Dolphins. You will find our DT Dolphin Sunday on site, on location, down the road from Lemoyne College on 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. Carvel DeWitt, the longest standing franchise in America with the DT Dolphin exclusive. And that is mint chocolate chip, whipped cream, and a cherry, hot fudge, green and gold sprinkles, and a chocolate dolphin jumping out of your whipped cream. Get it 7 days a week, and on Wednesdays, buy one, get one. The Wildcat Sports Pub, where we proudly call home to our West Genesee shows of over 8 years. With the West Genesee Wildcats coaches and student athletes, as well as their families, you'll find us at the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. GG Cards and Breaks, your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. A place that helps you be a big kid, no matter what your age is. And you can celebrate it with your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your neighbors, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. GG Cards and Breaks is a place for everyone of all ages, because our kid spirit should always be vibrant and strong. GG Cards and Breaks, where you can find them Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6, Sundays from 10 to 5, and of course 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse is the location. And monthly we have Trade Night, where you could buy, sell, and trade sports cards, as well as Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, and Disney Lorcana. Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world. You'll find Ma and Pa's on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, with multiple types of freeze-dried candy, as well as cotton candy, lemonade, and a plethora of flavors when it comes to kettle corn, popcorn, and premium corn, like the Elvis, which is banana-covered popcorn with the peanut butter Reese's drizzle, the way that Elvis liked peanut butter and banana. All of the wonderful things that you see are made in-house at Ma and Pa's. The lemonade, the cotton candy, the freeze-dried candy, as well as the popcorn and kettle corn. Find it all and on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And if you're out of town and you want to order it, and I just made your mouth water, go to Ma and Pa's popcorn.com and you can order today. Avicoli's, our home of our Liverpool athletic broadcast with student athletes, coaches, and administration every single month on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, at the corner of Wetzel Road and Route 57. And if you stand on the corner, you can see Liverpool High School within walking distance of Avicoli's, open 7 days a week. As well as Servomation, reinvigorating, re-energizing, reimagining what it is to have vending, whether it be at your high school, your grammar school, your preschool, your college, university, place of business, rest stop, airport. Servomation, the technology they have, the assortment, the variety that they have, and the quality of food. I've toured their facility in upstate New York, and you wouldn't believe the kitchen. There's restaurants that would beg to have a kitchen like this. Servomation does it differently, and I'm very happy to say that we are partnered with them. SERVOMATION.com. Go there for more information. Mother's Cupboard, the home of my breakfast sandwich exclusively in Central New York, 3709 James Street in Syracuse, 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. You will find the Cuse McMother, bacon, egg, and cheese inside of 2 pieces of French toast. Cut it up and have it with some syrup. Pick it up and eat it like a sandwich and dip it in the syrup, and do it today. Chick-fil-A Cicero, the first Chick-fil-A in Central New York, and owner-operator Jim Rusakowski, a brother of mine. You don't want to miss out on Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A Cicero specifically is a step above, in my opinion. There's people that are proud to see you, team members that are incredible. Chick-fil-A Cicero, they do it to the nth degree. They break the mold, and you can find those team members in our series, The Light Between Us, which airs every single month. Go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and search the Light Between Us playlist. Canine Camp Dog Daycare. There's no better place to bring your dog out in East Syracuse. Daycare. Hey, we all got stuff going on, and sometimes we just have to drop our dog off so that our dog's not sitting at home in a kennel or just being at home by themselves. The daycare at Canine Camp Dog Daycare on 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, across from BJ's, is the perfect place to go because of Lorraine, because of Chad, because of the care, concern, and the service to our wonderful animals. Head over there today, and of course you can call them at 315-437-7110 or go online to K-9kamp.com. Pizza Man, who we absolutely love going every single month and having our Baldwinsville Bees broadcast at Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. You don't want to miss any of those shows we do on site, on location, including Off the Rails with Al, featuring college football national champion Al Romano, who played with Tony Dorsett as a Pittsburgh Panther, and Hal's from Solvay. A lot of great things we get to do at Pizza Man. Love the Bees and appreciate the support that you have for their student athletes, coaches, administration, and families. And Brian's Landing, a place that we love to go out to in Jamesville. Brian's Landing, the menu that they have is eclectic. There's nothing on that menu where you sit there and go, oh, okay, like this is what the menu is because these 5 things are alike. No, everything is different. Something for everyone. 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. The perfect place to go with a team, the perfect place to go with a friend, the perfect place to go on a date or bring mom and dad. Brian's Landing makes you feel like you're away from home on a vacation when you're just out in Jamesville by the water. Head to Brian's Landing today. And of course, many thanks to the Lemoyne College Dolphins, Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, and the Binghamton University Bearcats for being our exclusive multimedia marketing partners. Lemoyne you will find Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time during Dolphin Time. And of course, you'll find Binghamton on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time during Bearcat Time. All of our teams are on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, find our Lemoyne playlist, our BSC Syracuse playlist, and our Binghamton playlist. You'll also find the Dolphins, the Bobcats, and the Bearcats by going to WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the Exclusive Partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com as well as Syracuse.bscbobcats.com and BinghamtonBearcats.com. For now, from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I say God bless, no stress, do your best. This is Wake Up Call. I'm Dan Tortora, and remember, God loves you.